The rain hit so hard I couldn't see 3 feet ahead, and I was standing on a stranger's doorstep at 11 p.m. with my phone dead and my suitcase soaked through. I knocked because the light was on, because I had nowhere else to go, because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The man who opened the door looked like he'd been awake for days. Dark circles under his eyes. Stubble. A wrinkled button-down with the sleeves rolled up. He stared at me for a second, taking in my drenched coat and the mascara I could feel running down my face. "I'm sorry," I said. "I know this is insane. My car broke down 2 blocks from here and my phone died and I saw your light. Come in." He stepped aside without hesitation. I hesitated. Every true crime podcast I'd ever listened to screamed at me not to walk into a stranger's house. But the rain was coming down in sheets and I was so tired I could barely stand. His living room was a mess. Papers everywhere. Empty coffee mugs on every surface. A blanket crumpled on the couch like he'd been sleeping there instead of in a bed. "Sit," he said, disappearing into another room. He came back with a towel and a phone charger. "You're shivering." I was. I took the towel and pressed it to my face, trying to pull myself together. He plugged in my phone without asking for it, like he understood I needed that small kindness. "I'm Daniel," he said. "Maya. You want tea? Coffee? Something stronger?" "Tea is good." He nodded and went to the kitchen. I could hear him moving around, filling a kettle, opening cabinets. I looked around the room again. There was a wedding photo on the bookshelf, turned face down. A cardboard box in the corner with "Emily's stuff" written on it in marker. Going through something, I thought. Just like me. When he came back with 2 mugs, he sat in the chair across from me instead of next to me on the couch. Keeping distance. Respectful. "Car trouble?" he asked. "Among other things." He didn't push. Just sipped his tea and waited. "I left my husband tonight," I said. I don't know why I told him. Maybe because he was a stranger. Maybe because his eyes were kind in a way that made me feel like I could say it out loud and the world wouldn't end. "Ah." He set his mug down. "That explains the suitcase. I didn't plan it. I was going to wait until morning, pack properly, figure out where to go. But then he came home and started talking about the Bahamas trip he booked for our anniversary next month. And I couldn't breathe. I grabbed what I could and left." "Where were you going?" "My sister's. She lives 2 hours north." But my car started making this noise around mile 15 and then it just died. "I can call you a tow truck in the morning. And a cab tonight, if you want." "Thank you." We sat in silence for a moment. The rain pounded against the windows. I pulled the towel tighter around my shoulders. "How long were you married?" he asked quietly. 6 years. "You?" His mouth twitched. 7. Almost 8. She left 3 months ago. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It needed to happen." He stood up and grabbed a business card from the desk, handed it to me. "I'm an accountant." "Boring, I know. But that's my cell number on there. If you need anything tomorrow, help with the car, directions, whatever, call me." I looked at the card. Daniel Foster, CPA. A downtown address. "You don't even know me," I said. "You knocked on my door in a rainstorm. That took guts." He smiled, and it was sad and real. "Besides, I know what it's like to leave. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do." My phone buzzed. It had enough charge to turn on. Immediately, text started flooding in. "Marcus. 37 messages." I felt my chest tighten. Daniel saw my face change. "You don't have to read those tonight. He'll be looking for me." "Then let him look. You're safe here." I wanted to believe him. But safe was a word I didn't trust anymore. The cab came 20 minutes later. Daniel walked me out under an umbrella, made sure the driver had the right address, paid the fare before I could argue. "Thank you," I said. "For everything. Take care of yourself, Maya." I got in the cab and watched him through the rain-streaked window as we pulled away. He stood there until we turned the corner, hands in his pockets, looking like someone who understood what it meant to be lost. My sister's apartment was dark when I arrived. I used the spare key she kept under the mat and dragged my suitcase inside, trying to be quiet. But she appeared in the hallway in her pajamas, took one look at me, and pulled me into a hug. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Don't be sorry. You're here. That's all that matters. She made up the guest bed and sat with me while I cried. I told her everything. About Marcus, about the years of feeling like I was disappearing, about tonight. I didn't tell her about Daniel. That felt like something separate. Something I needed to keep for myself. The next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Maya. It's Daniel. I called a tow truck for your car. They're bringing it to Mike's Auto on 5th Street. He's a friend. He'll give you a fair price. You didn't have to do that. I know. But I did. A pause. How are you doing? I'm okay. Thank you. Really? Good. Take care. He hung up before I could say anything else. My sister came into the room with coffee. Who was that? Just someone who helped me last night. She raised an eyebrow but didn't push. 3 days later, I went back to town to deal with the car. It needed a new alternator. $800 I didn't have. Marcus had always controlled our finances. I had a credit card with a $3,000 limit and the crushing realization that I had no idea how to be a person on my own. I was sitting in the waiting area at Mike's Auto, trying not to cry, when someone sat down next to me. Daniel. What are you doing here? I asked. Mike texted me. Said you were here. He looked at me carefully. You okay? Not really. The car. Expensive. And I don't have a job right now. I haven't worked in 4 years. Marcus wanted me to stay home. Daniel's jaw tightened. Let me help. No. I can't. Not alone. Not charity. I need someone to do my books. My assistant quit last month and I'm drowning in paperwork. You interested? I stared at him. You don't know if I can even use Excel. Can you? Yes, but then you're hired. Part-time, flexible hours, decent pay. What do you say? It felt like a lifeline thrown into dark water. I knew I should say no. I knew accepting help from a stranger was risky. But something in his eyes told me this was real. Okay, I said. Yes. He smiled. Good. Start Monday. Start Monday. He paid for my car repair before I could stop him, said he'd take it out of my first paycheck. I knew that was a lie, but I was too grateful to argue. As I drove back to my sister's that afternoon, I kept thinking about the way he'd looked at me. Like he saw someone worth saving. But I didn't know yet that Daniel Foster wasn't just any accountant. He was Marcus's accountant. I found out on my 3rd day of work. I was filing papers in Daniel's office. Invoices, tax documents, client folders arranged in neat rows. I just opened a cabinet when I saw it. A folder tab with my husband's company name. Marcus Chen. Chen Enterprises. My hands went numb. I pulled the folder out slowly. Inside were years of financial records. Marcus's business accounts. Personal accounts. Everything Daniel had been managing for him since 2019. The door opened behind me. I spun around. Daniel stood there holding 2 coffee cups, and the moment he saw what I was holding, his face went pale. Maya, you're his accountant. My voice sounded far away. This whole time. You knew exactly who I was. No. I didn't. Not that first night. But you figured it out. He set the coffee down carefully. The second day. You mentioned his name once. When you were on the phone with your sister. I put it together. And you didn't think to tell me? I was going to. He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't want you to disappear. I felt like the floor was tilting. Does he know I'm here? Did you tell him? No. God, no. I would never. How do I know that? How do I know this isn't, some setup? Did he send you to find me? Maya, I knocked on my door. In the rain. Remember. Maybe you knew I'd drive past your house. Maybe. Listen to yourself. Daniel's voice was firm but not angry. You think I orchestrated a rainstorm and a broken alternator? I'm good, but I'm not that good. I sank into a chair. My heart was racing. This is insane. This whole situation is insane. I know. He sat across from me, the same careful distance as that first night. You want the truth? Here it is. I've been Marcus's accountant for 6 years. I do his taxes, manage some of his business accounts, give him financial advice. That's it. We're not friends. We don't hang out. I see him maybe 4 times a year. But you know him. Professionally, yes. And you never thought it was weird? That his wife showed up at your door. I thought it was complicated. Daniel leaned forward. Maya, I've seen Marcus's finances. I know how he operates. Every dollar accounted for. Every expense tracked. I've watched him build a very successful business by controlling every variable. And when you told me you hadn't worked in 4 years, that he managed the money, that you felt like you couldn't breathe, it didn't surprise me. You think he's controlling. I think he's my client, and I'm not going to trash talk him. But I also think you left for a reason. I looked down at the folder in my hands. What am I supposed to do now? Whatever you want. You can quit. You can leave. You can tell me to go to hell. Or, he paused. You can trust that I'm on your side in this. Not his. Yours. Why? Because I know what it's like to be trapped in a marriage that looks perfect from the outside. My wife and I had the house, the cars, the Instagram photos. And I was miserable every single day. When she finally left, I was relieved. And ashamed that I was relieved. And angry that I'd wasted so many years pretending. His voice cracked on the last word. I saw something raw in his face. I'm sorry, I said quietly. Me too. He stood up. Look, I'll understand if you want to quit. I'll even write you a recommendation letter for another job. But if you stay, I promise you, Marcus will never know you're working here. I'll keep your name off everything. He barely looks at the paperwork anyway. I should have left. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to walk out and never look back. But I stayed. Because I needed the money. Because my sister's couch was uncomfortable and I was tired of feeling like a burden. Because Daniel looked at me like I was capable of making my own choices, and I'd forgotten what that felt like. The work was easy. Invoices, spreadsheets, filing. Daniel was patient when I asked questions. He brought me coffee in the mornings. Always remembered I took it with cream, no sugar. We fell into a rhythm. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking on a tightrope. 2 weeks in, Marcus called Daniel's office. I answered the phone before I could think. Foster and Associates. Silence on the other end. Then, Maya. My blood turned to ice. Who is this? I managed to say. It's me. It's Marcus. What are you? Why are you? He sounded genuinely confused. Are you working for Daniel Foster? I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't dial Daniel's cell. He was at a client meeting across town. I sat there staring at the phone, waiting for it to ring again. It did. 10 times. I didn't answer. When Daniel finally came back an hour later, I was still sitting at the desk, frozen. What happened? He saw my face and immediately knew something was wrong. Marcus called. I answered. He recognized my voice. Shit. He's going to come here. Or call the police. Or I don't know. But I can't. Daniel, I can't do this. Okay. Okay, breathe. He crouched down next to my chair. First of all, you didn't do anything wrong. You're allowed to work. You're allowed to exist. Second, I'll handle Marcus. How? I'll call him back. I'll tell him you needed a job and I offered you one. That's it. Nothing illegal about that. He'll think. Let him think whatever he wants. You're separated. You don't owe him explanations. But I did owe him explanations, according to the law. We were still married. I'd left without filing anything, without talking to a lawyer. I was in limbo. Daniel made the call while I sat there. I could only hear his side. Marcus, hey. Yeah, she's working for me. Part-time admin stuff. No, we didn't plan it. She needed work. I needed help. It's that simple. A long pause. I understand you're upset, but she's allowed to make her own decisions. Yeah. Look, this is between you and her. I'm just her employer. Okay. Yeah. Take care. He hung up and looked at me. He's angry. But he's not coming here. What did he say? That he wants to talk to you. That he deserves to know where you are. That this is inappropriate. Is it? Inappropriate? Daniel sat on the edge of the desk. Honestly? Yeah, probably. If anyone found out I hired my client's estranged wife, it would look bad. I could lose him as a client. Maybe others. But I don't care. Why not? Because you matter more than a client. He said it simply like it was obvious. And because I'm tired of doing the safe thing. I played it safe for 8 years. It got me nowhere. I looked at him, really looked at him. The tired eyes that seemed a little less tired now. The way he rolled his sleeves to his elbows when he was working. The small scar above his left eyebrow that I'd never asked about. I should go, I said. This is too complicated. It is complicated. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. Daniel. Stay. Please. At least until you figure out what you want to do next. You need the money, and I need the help. Everything else we can figure out. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to stay in this small office with the dusty window blinds and the coffee maker that made terrible coffee and the man who looked at me like I was brave instead of broken. But my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. We need to talk. I'm filing for divorce next week. My lawyer wants to meet with you. I showed Daniel the screen. He read it, and something in his expression changed. What? I asked. His lawyer. It's Emily. Your wife. Ex-wife. She's a divorce attorney. I guess she's representing him now. He laughed, but it was hollow. Small world. That's insane? Yeah. He stood up, paced to the window. She knows you're here. She'll use it. Make it look like we're together, like that's why you left. Are we? Together? The question hung in the air. Daniel turned to face me, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't let myself acknowledge before. I don't know, he said quietly. What do you want? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Emily Foster. I looked at Daniel. He nodded. I answered. Hello. Maya Chen? This is Emily Foster. I represent your husband in his divorce filing. I'd like to schedule a time for us to meet and discuss settlement terms. Her voice was cold. Professional. Nothing like the woman in the turned-down photograph. Okay, I said. How's tomorrow at 10? My office downtown. I'll be there. She hung up without saying goodbye. Daniel and I stood there in the quiet office, the afternoon sun slanting through the blinds, and I realized that everything was about to get much worse before it got better. But when he reached for my hand, I didn't pull away. Emily's office was all glass and steel, the kind of place designed to make you feel small. She sat behind a massive desk in a crisp white blouse, her blonde hair pulled back tight, her smile sharp enough to cut. Maya. Thank you for coming. She didn't stand up. Didn't offer to shake my hand. Let's get right to it. Marcus is willing to be generous. He'll give you $20,000 in the settlement, plus your car. In exchange, you agree to a no-fault divorce and waive any claim to his business or future earnings. That's generous? I kept my voice steady. Considering you contributed nothing financially to the marriage, yes. She slid a folder across the desk. You have 3 days to review with your attorney and sign. I don't have an attorney. Then I suggest you get one. She leaned back in her chair. I also need to ask, are you currently involved with Daniel Foster? That's none of your business. It is if it's relevant to the timeline of your separation. If you were having an affair, I wasn't. I'm not. But you're working for him. Living with your sister, but spending every day in his office. It doesn't look good, Maya. I needed a job. He offered me one. How convenient. My ex-husband hiring my client's wife. Her smile was ice. You understand how that looks. What do you want me to say? I want you to be smart. Sign the papers. Take the money. Move on with your life. Because if you fight this, I will make sure every detail of your relationship with Daniel comes out. And trust me, neither of you wants that. I stood up. I'll think about it. 3 days. Maya. After that, the offer drops to 15. I left her office feeling like I'd been slapped. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, trying to breathe, before I drove to Daniel's office. He was waiting. How bad? Bad. I told him everything. The settlement offer. The threats. The 3-day deadline. 20,000 is an insult, Daniel said. You were married 6 years. You're entitled to more. I don't want his money. I just want out. But you need money to start over. An apartment, a car that actually works, breathing room while you figure things out. What do you think I should do? He was quiet for a moment. I think you should call my lawyer. She's good. She'll fight for you. But Maya. He looked at me seriously. If you do this, it's going to get ugly. Emily will come after both of us. She'll make it about us, about some imaginary affair. She might even report me to the state board for conflict of interest. Then I won't fight. I'll sign. No. His voice was firm. Don't make yourself smaller to protect me. I can handle Emily. I'm more worried about you. Why do you care so much? The question came out before I could stop it. Daniel looked at me, and something shifted in the air between us. Because somewhere between that rainy night and right now, you became important to me, he said. And I don't want to see you get hurt. But we barely know each other. I know you take your coffee with cream and no sugar. I know you bite your lip when you're concentrating. I know you're scared but you show up anyway. I know you laugh at terrible jokes and you're kind to everyone, even people who don't deserve it. And I know that when I'm with you, I feel like maybe I'm not completely broken. My throat tightened. Daniel, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. But I did want to say something. I wanted to tell him that the past month had been the first time in years I'd felt like myself. That his office had become the only place I felt safe. That I'd started looking forward to mornings because it meant seeing him. Instead, I kissed him. It was brief and tentative and probably a terrible idea. But when I pulled back, he was smiling. Okay, he said softly. So that's how you feel. Is this insane? Completely. But I'm okay with insane. We both laughed, and for a moment, everything felt possible. I hired Daniel's lawyer. Her name was Rachel, and she was everything Emily wasn't. Warm, fierce, strategic. She took one look at Marcus's settlement offer and said, absolutely not. The negotiation took 2 months. Emily pushed back on everything. She dragged Daniel into depositions, questioned him about our relationship, tried to make it seem like I'd left Marcus for him. But Rachel had documentation, phone records showing Daniel and I hadn't been in contact before that rainy night, witnesses who'd seen me at my sister's apartment, proof that I'd been job hunting before I started working for him. In the end, Marcus agreed to $45,000, the car, and half the savings account I didn't know existed. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was enough. The day the divorce was finalized, Daniel took me to dinner. Nothing fancy. A small Italian place with checkered tablecloths and wine served in juice glasses. How do you feel? He asked. Lighter. Scared. Free. I paused. All of the above. That's how I felt when Emily left. Like I could finally breathe, but I didn't remember how. And now I'm learning. He reached across the table and took my hand. We both are. I looked at our hands together and thought about everything that had led to this moment. The rain. The broken car. The folder in the filing cabinet. The phone call. The divorce. Can I ask you something? I said. Anything. That night when I knocked on your door, would you have helped me if you'd known who I was? Daniel didn't hesitate. Yes. Why? Because you needed help. And because I saw something in you that I recognized. Someone who'd been lost for a long time and was finally trying to find their way home. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'm still trying. Me too. But maybe we can try together. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't a perfect ending. We both had baggage and scars and fears that would take years to work through. But sitting there in that little restaurant, holding hands across a table, I realized that perfect wasn't what I needed. I needed real. I needed someone who saw me at my worst and stayed anyway. I needed someone who understood that healing wasn't linear, that some days would be harder than others, that we'd both stumble. Together sounds good, I said. 3 months later, I got my own apartment. Nothing fancy. A 1-bedroom in an okay neighborhood with a kitchen window that faced east. Daniel helped me move in, spent all day assembling furniture and hanging curtains. When the last box was unpacked, We sat on my new couch and ordered pizza. It's not much, I said, looking around. It's yours. That makes it everything. I still worked for Daniel part-time, though I'd started taking night classes in graphic design. Something I'd always wanted to do but never had the courage to try. Daniel had encouraged me, helped me fill out the application, celebrated when I got accepted. We took things slow. Some nights he stayed over. Some nights we just talked on the phone until we fell asleep. We went to therapy, separately and sometimes together. We learned each other's triggers and boundaries. We had fights and makeups and quiet mornings drinking coffee. It wasn't always easy. Some days I missed the security of my old life, even though it had been suffocating. Some days Daniel pulled away because he was scared of getting hurt again. But we kept showing up. We kept trying. On our 6-month anniversary, counted from that rainy night, Daniel showed up at my apartment with takeout and a small box. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a key. Not to his apartment. To an office. "I'm expanding the business," he said. "Opening a second location. I need a partner. Someone who knows the books inside and out. Someone I trust completely." He paused. "What do you say?" I looked at the key, then at him. Partners. Equal stake. Equal say. Equal risk. That's a big step. I know. But I think we're ready. And maybe we were. Maybe we weren't. But I'd learned that the only way forward was through. One brave choice at a time. "Yes," I said. "Let's do it." He kissed me, and I tasted hope and uncertainty and the beautiful, terrifying possibility of a future I got to build myself. Later that night, lying in bed with Daniel asleep beside me, I thought about the girl who'd knocked on a stranger's door in the rain. She'd been desperate and lost and so scared of what came next. I wished I could tell her that it would all work out. That she'd find her footing. That the man who opened that door would become her partner, her friend, her safe place to land. But more than that, I wished I could tell her that she'd save herself. That the strength she needed was already inside her, just waiting to be found. The rain started again outside my window. But this time, I wasn't running. I was exactly where I was supposed to be.